Picture this. You wake up on a random Tuesday. You check your phone, and there's a news alert. A new report just confirmed it. Half of all jobs on the planet are now done by machines. Not eventually. Not someday. Now. No riots. No blackout. No robot uprising. Just silence. The kind of silence that comes after something massive happens and nobody quite knows how to react yet. That's the world we're going to imagine today. Not a distant sci-fi future, but a very real, very plausible scenario. What actually happens if artificial intelligence takes over half of the jobs that currently exist? Not some, not a few, but 50%. Let's walk through it, piece by piece. First, let's be honest about something. This isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. We've already watched AI tools write code, generate legal documents, diagnose diseases from scans, translate languages in real time, and create art that fools professional judges. The technology is not knocking on the door anymore. It's already inside the house, quietly rearranging the furniture. So let's start with the obvious question. Which jobs go first? It's not the ones people usually expect. For decades, the fear was aimed at factory workers, at people on assembly lines, the ones doing repetitive physical tasks. But it turns out physical work is actually harder for AI to replace than we thought. Robots are expensive, clumsy in unpredictable environments, and terrible at things like climbing a ladder or fixing a leaky pipe under a sink. The real vulnerability is in the middle. Office jobs, desk jobs. The ones that involve reading, writing, analyzing, and organizing information. Paralegals. Accountants. Customer service representatives. Data analysts. Copywriters. Basic coding roles. Even some parts of medicine, like reading X-rays or interpreting lab results. These are the jobs built on patterns, and patterns are exactly what AI is best at recognizing. So imagine this new world. Half of these roles are gone, or transformed so completely that the human version barely resembles the old one. What happens to the people who held them? Here's where it gets messy, because history gives us two very different stories to choose from. Story number one is the optimist's tale. This is the same argument made during the Industrial Revolution, when machines replaced weavers and farmhands. People panicked. They thought mass unemployment was permanent. But new jobs appeared. Factory jobs, then office jobs, then service jobs, then tech jobs. Every wave of automation destroyed old work and created new work, usually work nobody could have predicted beforehand. Nobody in 1990 was training to become a social media manager or an app developer, because those jobs didn't exist yet. If this pattern holds, then a world where AI does half the current jobs isn't necessarily a world with 50% unemployment. It might be a world where millions of new roles emerge around managing AI, auditing AI, training AI, and doing the human-centered work AI simply cannot replicate. Therapy. Caregiving. Skilled trades. Creative direction. Anything requiring trust, empathy, or physical presence in a chaotic, unpredictable environment. But here's story number two, the uncomfortable one. What if this time is different? Every previous wave of automation replaced human muscles or human hands. This wave replaces human thinking. And thinking was supposed to be our safe zone. Our fallback. The thing that made us valuable no matter what. If AI can now outright, out-analyze, and out-strategize a huge portion of the workforce, then the new jobs that emerge might not need nearly as many humans to fill them. A single person with the right AI tools might be able to do the work that used to take a team of 10. That's not a story about job transformation. That's a story about job compression. And if job compression is the real outcome, then the economics of this get very strange, very fast. Let's talk about that for a second, because this is the part most people don't think through. If half the workforce is displaced, who buys anything? Businesses exist to sell goods and services to people who have money. If tens of millions of people suddenly have far less income, consumer spending drops. Companies sell less. Revenue drops. And ironically, that hurts the very companies that automated in the first place. This is actually one of the strongest arguments for why a fully automated 50% unemployment scenario probably wouldn't be allowed to just happen without some kind of massive economic intervention. Governments and economies don't tend to sit back and watch half their population lose purchasing power. Something would have to give. Universal basic income has been the most talked about answer for years now. Shorter work weeks. Retraining programs funded by AI-driven productivity gains. Heavier taxation on automation itself. None of these are guaranteed, none of these are simple, but the pressure to do something would be enormous. Let's dig a little deeper into what that intervention might actually look like, because it's easy to say, the government would step in, without picturing what that means for an ordinary person. Maybe it looks like a monthly payment that covers basic needs, freeing people to pursue work that doesn't pay well but matters deeply, like art, community organizing, or caregiving for aging parents. Maybe it looks like a 4-day work week becoming standard, not because companies suddenly became generous, but because there simply isn't enough traditional work to fill 5 days for everyone anymore. Maybe entire new public institutions get built around retraining, the way some countries built massive infrastructure projects during economic downturns in the past, except this time the infrastructure being built is human skill itself. Or maybe none of that happens smoothly, and instead we get a messy, uneven patchwork. Some countries move fast and cushion the blow. Others move slowly, and the gap between the automated winners and the displaced losers grows wider every year. That unevenness might be the most realistic outcome of all, because history rarely hands us clean, universal solutions. It usually hands us a chaotic mix of progress in some places and stagnation in others. Now let's zoom into something less talked about. The psychological weight of this shift. Work isn't just a paycheck for most people. It's identity. It's structure. It's a reason to get up at 7 in the morning. It's how people introduce themselves at parties. I'm a teacher. I'm an engineer. I'm a nurse. Take that away from half the population, even if the money problem gets solved somehow, and you're left with a different kind of crisis. A meaning crisis. A generation of people asking, if a machine can do what I do, and do it better, faster, and cheaper, then what exactly am I here for? This is not a small thing. Societies built entirely around the idea that human worth is tied to productivity would need to fundamentally rethink that idea. That's not a technology problem. That's a philosophical and cultural earthquake. On the other hand, some people argue this could be the greatest liberation in human history. Imagine a world where survival doesn't require selling 40 hours of your life every week to an employer. Where people have room to create, to explore, to spend time with family, to learn skills purely because they're curious, not because a job demands it. Every major religious and philosophical tradition has, at some point, dreamed about a world free from the burden of endless labor. Maybe this is what that dream looks like when it finally shows up, uninvited and a little terrifying. Let's also consider the global side of this, because automation doesn't hit every country the same way. Wealthier nations with strong infrastructure, education systems, and capital might adapt faster, building new industries around AI oversight and advanced services. Developing economies that rely heavily on outsourced labor, call centers, manufacturing, data entry, could be hit especially hard, since those are exactly the kinds of jobs AI threatens first. This isn't just a story about individual job loss. It's a story that could reshape global power, global inequality, and the entire structure of international trade. So where does this leave us? The truth is, nobody actually knows for certain how this plays out. Anyone who tells you with complete confidence exactly what happens when AI replaces half of all jobs is guessing, just like the rest of us. What we do know is this. The technology is advancing faster than our institutions, our laws, and our cultural expectations can keep up with. Education systems built for a world of stable 40-year careers are training students for jobs that might not exist in their current form by the time they graduate. Retirement systems built around decades of steady employment assume a kind of job security that may simply stop being reliable for large parts of the population. Maybe the 50% number never actually gets reached. Maybe it plateaus at 30, or spikes past 60. Maybe it happens gradually over 30 years, giving society time to adjust. Or maybe it happens in a single decade, catching almost everyone off guard. But here's the real question worth sitting with, long after this video ends. It's not really about whether AI takes half the jobs. It's about whether we, as a species, can imagine a version of value, purpose, and dignity that isn't entirely dependent on being economically productive from 9 to 5. Because if we can answer that question honestly, in a way that includes everyone, not just the people who already have wealth, skills, or connections, then a world with half the traditional jobs might not be a disaster at all. It might just be the moment humanity finally has to grow up. So, what do you think? Would you welcome a world like this, or does it terrify you? Let me know down in the comments, and if this video made you think, even a little, consider sticking around, because this conversation is only just getting started.